Everybody, so we are back with another episode of the Raad Life. This time around, I have a guest who has been a friend. I met this gentleman on LinkedIn originally, and we have been in communication. We share a common interest relevant to the aging in place and modification, basically certified aging in place. We do remodels. We're both sort of in the same industry, but we have a focus on quality of life enhancement in livable environments. Gentleman on here that I have with me, I'm going to bring him in from the green room, waiting room right now, is Scott Fulton. And Scott, let me see if Scott, are you there?
Yes, I am, Rod.
Hi, Scott. How are you?
Very good, Rod. Good to see you.
So you are aging in place?
Like
the rest of us this week.
Whether we all realize it or not, we're all
I've been waiting the whole week knowing that you're going to be on here. I've been waiting the whole week to do that one. Okay, I was telling everybody before you got on that we basically are in the sort of the same industry, and our interests go beyond just sort of the application itself. We really kind of not concerned. We're kind of curious, and we tend to basically be drawn to like innovations that are quality of life enhancement, regardless of capabilities and stuff like that. But I literally, I woke up at the beginning of the week knowing that I was going to have you on here, and I was like, I can't wait to ask him if he's aging in place like the rest of us now.
It's a great question because everyone likes to avoid it. They think that's for someone else. But there's a lot of things in my world is to get people out of their comfort zone and realize, no, that's what we're all doing. We've been doing it since we were teenagers. We generally, aging really starts at about age 21. At that point, up until then, we're in growth mode. And I'm afraid you don't have to wait till 40. It actually starts at around
you're talking about
21.
Physical age, because some of us took a lot longer to get the other part of the.
Well, no, I'm not going to go on the cognitive piece, especially with two guys. Maybe we could have a little fantasy discussion here.
No, I'm just still laughing. I keep telling people I was certified aging in place in 2008, and until last year, nobody wanted to talk about it, right? So look, if I only knew that we needed a global health catastrophe to get people to actually accept the concept of aging in place, because they have no other choice but to do it like they have this last week. Wow. If we only knew.
Yeah, it's a great little test, a little experiment we're all going through right now to get some sense of what isolation means. And if you know anything about aging in place, isolation is not something we recommend. And if you're not liking it now, imagine doing it for 20
absolutely.
years.
It's actually one of the main issues that are faced with seniors face, whether it's in their own home or even if it's in a facility, and it makes them even more vulnerable, as you know, to being abused when they're in that isolated state, because there's a desperation component that comes with it. There's a depression component that comes with it. The old adage of people basically giving away their life savings basically to somebody who called them just because there was actually a human being that reached out. Or if you look at the Meals on Wheels service and how important it is that it's not just about the food, but it's also in many cases the only human contact that people have. And right now with what's going on, and I'm trying to get some of my colleagues, some of the people that I know in that space on to talk about it, but all these people that were dependent on that social component, on that food being delivered, now are needing to physically distance and socially distance. And so if you don't have a support system around you that is able to be there with you because they're medically safe to be exposed for you to be exposed to, that's another layer of what the reality has been for the last week for a lot of people that are seniors.
Yeah, and again, I try to pull it back to what does that mean for everybody at every age? And if you feel like you've been scrambling, that should be a sign that you weren't as well prepared as you may want to be. And so, how can we use this experience to identify things that will happen again, right? Whether it's a pandemic or some other event, what we're all going through today is going to happen on an individual basis at a minimum in the future. And if you don't want to have the kind of experience you've had, then it says probably
Right.
worth spending some time planning.
Well, they're already saying that this in itself, the coronavirus situation, will be again coming like next year. I mean, next year means if we're out of this by the summer, we've got a couple of months before we're basically hit by it. And to your point, it may not be a pandemic of this nature, which is global, but it will definitely impact everybody. I mean, I'll share personally, at the beginning of this year, I was hit with a influenza type 1A, which when the doctor told me it was 1A, I said, what does that mean? He goes, you're an overachiever. You, you have influenza type 1A, but, or type A1. But the point of it was I went into seclusion for a week. Like they told me you're very contagious and you need to basically go to seclusion for a week. So I actually had like I had like a training for what was coming. I went to the grocery store. I went to CVS. I wore a mask. I went to the bank. I thought somebody was going to shoot me because I'm wearing a mask and gloves going to the bank, right? And now I'm predicting that was my reality in January. I'm predicting by the time we're out of the coronavirus, we're probably going to start seeing masks and gloves on the fashion runway. Probably, you mark my words, right? It's going to end up, it's going to end up being sort of the prudent thing to do. And so, to your point on the fact that this is not going to go away, or some form or the other will replace it, but we are going to be facing this sort of reality. And the fact that it's an opportunity for us to now have this discussion about how do you prepare for change, right? Basically is what we're talking about.
Right.
Before we delve into more of this, I want you to take a minute, Scott, and for those who don't know you, if you wouldn't mind, let's give people a little bit of background about you and about your company, Home Ideations.
Sure. So my background, I come at the world primarily, I guess, as the engineer. So I tend to bring an engineering approach to most things. And I was in corporate America, in and out, and consulting for a number of years, and decided a few years ago that it was really this is where we could have the most impact. And it was recognizing the challenge coming before us, particularly with baby boomers, as we're going to start to age in place and begin that process early. How are we going to really maximize that opportunity of really living out the golden years the way we actually envisioned it? And it was pretty apparent by the data analysis I did in my research background that things aren't playing out the way people had just assumed it would. So I started this company, Home Ideations. We started doing a lot of design and remodeling work, trying to figure out what worked with people. The biggest difference in our approach is we do it at the front end. So all our clients are very proactive. They may not even be retired yet.
Which is the ideal situation, right? That's the ideal situation, is you prepare for it that way.
We said there's lots of people out there to catch you when you fall, but unfortunately at that point you're not going to like your options. All our clients are much more at the front end. They say, we don't want to fall. We want to mitigate those risks, but we don't want to give up any of the lifestyle. So that started in the design work. So we do design work for folks, and we've now we've stopped doing the building piece, which I know you're still doing, Rod, and I'm thankful to have those headaches.
Yeah, but we make that decision on a per case basis. Okay. I mean, if it's an existing client or we have a benefit that we can extend by doing that, the project is not big enough to basically have multiple layers. It's manageable. We do that, but I also hear where you're coming from. You get busy enough with that side of it. You also want to make sure that the client gets the best price point on the other side, on the build out. So I always tell my clients, you're under no obligation to really do everything with me. We're here to help at the end of the day to get you there sooner rather than later. I want to just take a minute, because you and I basically speak, we fall victim to what everybody does in a particular field. We're throwing away jargons and acronyms, and I just want to take a minute and explain to people that are listening that may have not had the benefit of hearing me say this before. Take a minute and explain to people what is aging in place and what is a certified aging in place specialist, basically, which you and I both are, because I don't know that everybody really is clear on that.
Yeah. So as I said at the top, we're all aging in place, whether we realize it or not. So maybe it's really aging in place planning around what does that mean. So when I talk to clients, usually what that means, and I teach this as well to adults, it means for most people, we're planning to stay in our home for as long as we can. And that endpoint moves from well, as long as I can live until whenever time, we're looking forward to go to the resort at some point, or we're going to go move in with a daughter, or they may have some plan beyond that or not.
Assuming you didn't lose all your 401k in 2008, by the way. I'm just saying. Or in coronavirus times.
Right. Um, so it's what's involved in a plan that you put together that says that actually will work. And you and I both realize most people drastically underestimate what's involved in that plan in terms of, because
For sure.
none of our houses, unless you're one of the 1% in the country, was ever designed for you to live beyond the age of about 50 or 60. So there's some things that, people like you and I, so we're trained to have the eye to say, these are things that you're going to want to have later or absolutely need to have later. But if we can do it now in a way where you're going to say, oh, I wish I had that years ago because that's really attractive, really nicely done, functions a lot better, and I know later. So the one example I use for people is a shower. So when we're designing a shower for somebody, so one of the rules I use is we're going to design it for 2 people. So you can have a party if you want. But in later years, you would need it to have it that big if you're sitting in a shower chair and someone's helping you shower. But that doesn't mean it has to look like, if you wait until you need it, it's not going to look like the shower you could have today.
So it's also going to cost you much more if you wait until you need it, because 2 things happen. You're on a crunch, usually if you're being released or discharged, to get it all ready for you. If you don't have it ready at that point in time, you may even be impacting how soon the in-home care can come in and help you, because it's not a safe work environment for that caregiver. I tell people these. Excuse me. You start off by mentioning baby boomers. The numbers, millennials are actually larger than baby boomers. I don't know about you. I'm a Gen Xer. We're kind of like a bridge generation, maybe, but we're kind of the smallest. But baby boomers, you're talking about 71 plus million people that are in that age bracket, a lot of whom basically are not their father or their mother's aging person. They are a totally different profile. They're healthy-ish more, maybe, or at least more active at this point in their life than maybe their parents or their grandparents were. But the thing about it is that they are likely to basically by doing what we're talking about, be doing modifications to their primary asset, which is your home. So number one asset in your portfolio is your home.
Right.
So if you think about it from a financial perspective and an improvement of your primary asset, these modifications that you are doing, if they gain you, right now we're in an economic crisis again, right? It was 2008 was the same thing. If they gain you usage of your house for another 5 years or 10 years by doing what you're doing or what you have done before, that means that you can stay in your house. You don't have to sell that house because they cannot accommodate you anymore. Go buy something that's maybe at a high market point, move from a familiar environment, neighborhood, all this stuff that where everything is, which is totally counterintuitive for me as you get older. Like, you want things that are familiar around you, not things that are brand new. The other thing is, you may be positioning your property in a much more appealing situation for an incoming deep-pocketed market, which is more likely than not baby boomers or older people that are moving maybe into your desirable location. So not only is it to your benefit for use, but it could potentially be to your benefit in terms of resale for that particular client that's looking for something that's already been adapted for quality of life for as long as possible. It's in not a lot of those properties are on the market, so it puts you in a distinguishing position that maybe that one person who's looking to move from inland to the coast, instead of spending like $250,000 on a remodel, the house is already fitting for them, and they just move in and continue to live. I've been trying to talk to people about that. It's not only personal empowerment, but it's also potentially financially wise decisions. Do you agree?
Oh, absolutely. I take them through, in the class I teach on, I take them through a simple business case. And so if you use a simple home and you spend 50,000 in some just aging in place upgrades, which might be just make the shower a curbless shower, or a walk-in or roll-in shower, whatever, they're all the same. A primary access point, and perhaps something, an interior lift to get to the second floor. You can do that for, we'll say it's 50,000. that may sound like a lot of money. Return on investment on that, if you can't stay home and because you've had a fall, you're not going to be released to be able to go back home. The return on that is 6 months. And it's if you look at what the quality of life is and the return on an investment, I tell people, and this is a great example. I talk about it in the class. We're so used to watching the market thinking that's going to have the biggest impact on our long-term equity and income. There's no financial cliff you'll fall off steeper than if you have to go into a facility and you don't have very deep pockets. And once you go in, there's no going back. So I look at it and say, you want to keep all the options on the table, keep control of the choices, have the best options you can, and you stay in control of when you decide you want to move and what your lifestyle is going to be.
Well, and to your point, just let's expand that idea about that, it's a very slippery slope and you're going to go down it very fast. If you happen to have deep pockets, because last time I looked, most of the stuff that's going to pay for that extended, aging period of your life, if you're going to be institutionalized, hospitalized, or even if it's, independent living, it's all coming out of savings. It's all coming from some asset base, the family has. It's not coming out of insurance coverage. If you're a veteran, you have a little bit of coverage, maybe, so it's a smart financial decision to try to make your asset, your home, try to accommodate and usable as long as possible. Because if you happen to be, and there's a lot of reverse mortgages out there, right? And and it's serious business, serious enough to have like Tom Selleck and Captain Kirk basically pitching it, right? And then Robert Wagner before that, it's like Mr. Hart was basically pitching reverse mortgages. And when did Max, the driver, was just turning in his grave right now, basically.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Mr. Hart is pitching.
You're dating us.
But oh yeah, well, you know what? But you're laughing, so the joke is impacted. So not only did I have "Are You Aging in Place," but I also got Heart to Heart in there, right? But the thing about it is, if you're lucky enough to have equity in your home, and if you happen to be living in an area like Southern California, for example, and you're basically going into some sort of assisted living, you're looking at anywhere close to between $70,000 to $100,000 a year in coverage. So if you have, let's say, $1 million of equity in your home, for some reason, you bought the house really early, you paid it mostly off, you maybe got another mortgage on it, second mortgage. Let's say you have $1 million of equity and you get a reverse mortgage on this. You're looking at 10 years.
Yeah.
And you're looking at, and if you go in, it's not an endless resource. It's a stopgap. And in many cases, again, you're leveraging your primary assets. So if it can gain you more years of usage, of course, neither you and I are saying that if somebody has a medical condition that is serious and cannot be dealt with in a home environment, they should be in a home environment. That's not what we're talking about, right? We're talking about everything kind of till that point. Also, falling, injury, stuff of that nature is not necessarily also age related, by the way. I mean, I live in a surf town. How many injuries of people basically crashing, their necks against the bottom of the seabed, basically surfing, or people basically temporarily being injured in a sport injury. Somebody's a sports athlete in a high school. So, we tend to sometimes pigeonhole this conversation relevant to age, but it's not necessarily an age-related only conversation. It's a quality of life conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a runner. I do marathons and things, and I've had knee surgery, and suddenly steps become a real burden. I've had, I remember a number of years ago, I had pneumonia. I couldn't even make it up a set of stairs, and I was a lot younger than I am today. So let's
talk. Go ahead, Scott. Finish your thought.
No, that's okay. I've already lost it.
Well, that's another thing.
When I say lost it, I mean really lost it.
Well, you, my friend, strike me as also being a non-linear sometimes. So the two of us on one screen, that's a recipe for disaster here a little bit. But we are prepared. We prepare for the disaster, so we're covered. We're good. The thing I want to also point out is this is really a question about independence. right? And sometimes that gets lost in the shuffle. We get caught up in the weeds on it. In order to exercise your maximum independence, where you're making your own decisions, these things dealt with in a proactive manner is the only way to do it, because you may not have that luxury. You might not have that opportunity or option if you are being hospitalized, regardless of age. You're going to be discharged. Somebody else may be making those decisions for you. And now your home, which is supposed to be your sanctuary at the time of need, may be aesthetically and physically altered to where it adds to your stress rather than relieve it.
Yeah, the point I try to make with people is, it's a game of odds, right? So you've worked a number of years, and now you're going to play the odds. Well, unfortunately, the odds in Las Vegas are far better than the odds of you being able to stay in your home and stay in control of that choice. And when I say the odds, like, you probably have at best a 1 in 5 chance of getting through and not needing some aging in place improvements. That's about as optimistic as I would ever want to go. And it's only because, like, I work with gerontologists and people in the medical side on the other end, and they see it all the time. What people don't realize, and I always try to take a point to remind them, is this happens far more frequently than we tend to think, because these people just slip off the radar. As soon as they become isolated at home and they can't get out, or they move into a facility, they're essentially gone from our daily view. So we tend to downplay how many people that's happening to, but it's very real. So I say, did you work all of your life to, suddenly take a huge risk, and then in doing so hand over most of your earnings to either a facility or some other program, that instead of whoever, you may want to leave some for your kids or have enough to have comfortable life for your partner, your widow perhaps,
Right.
is going to live another 10 years. And that's, if I can just jump in there, for people too, like the 100,000 a year you mentioned, that assumes, if it's a couple, that you're both going to go together. Well, what if, and this happens a lot, is, if one gets struck first, do they now both have to go? And now suddenly the survivor may be looking at many years, and have you given up the home? So as soon as you find yourself there, say, the options quickly become pretty unattractive. So you want to really be well ahead of that. And that's the hard part for people to come to terms with.
Well, I think, again, if we were to reflect for a minute on those who, for whatever reason, may have been prepared, may have not. You and I were talking about, like the just distance learning and automation, and people basically having some things in place right now with the coronavirus to pivot and adjust. I mean, I think word of the week is pivot, right? Um, the in your side of the country, you said that the school districts, for example, some of them had already things in place to do this sort of distance learning, but what motivated that was weather conditions. It was the fact that there would be snow days, and they were losing a lot of education time because of snow days. So here is an opportunity now, I think, with the coronavirus, for us to have these conversations about preparedness, that people are maybe a little bit more receptive to hearing them. And one of the things that, again, is unavoidable, and I think we were joking about it, but it's true, none of us are going to get out of this alive, and all of us are going to age. So what do you do to prepare yourself so that you are not a victim of this, but actually crafting sort of as much as possible what your aging process, what you getting older looks like. And preparation is the only thing, and proactively doing it is the only, you and I both know that is the only way to really kind of guarantee that you have some say in the matter and some control over that quality of life. So it is an opportunity. I mean, it's a sort of a silver lining maybe in the middle of this dark, health crisis that we have, is that people are a little bit more conscientious about the idea of preparing. Let's talk about just longevity. You had a graphic, and I'm going to put it up, and we'll share this on the. I know it's not clear for people that are looking at the screen, but if you walk us through this, as well. And just the idea of I don't want to put you on the spot, but how old are you?
60.
60?
60, yeah,
Six
60.
zero?
Yep.
Yes, you're a little older than I am. You're a bona fide baby boomer. I'm just a wannabe.
Yeah, yeah.
But so and you do you still run?
Did a 10-mile run this morning.
So again,
And
the lifestyle. I think what's funny, before we get to this longevity thing, or maybe it is related. We have this, not you and I, but we, I think, as a society, have this idea about aging as fitting a certain poster, a certain visual. In most cases, right? Not necessarily in every case. I know I'm being broad stroke generalizing, but it's still interesting that a person who is of a certain age is seen in a certain light. You are a 60-year-old man that basically ran 10 miles today. I saw an article the other day about a 72-year-old woman that was skateboarding. And when I shared that with somebody, they're all physically freaked out. Like, well, that doesn't make any sense. And I said, well, hold on a second. Let's look at this in terms of reality. Check. Okay. We are now 2020. So if you were 60 today, in 2000, you were 40. Right? In 19,
it keeps the math easy.
Yeah, if you keep the math easy, right? I mean, what were you doing? What were you doing in 1990, right? I mean, this is, and the reason why I'm bringing it up this way, I was having this conversation with people in the fitness and wellness industry, right, spas and so forth. I said, people in their 70s and 80s were already doing Jane Fonda and Jack LaLanne and going to clubs and things of that nature, and especially if they were in areas that had nice weather, they were out playing volleyball and so forth. Now, these are the people that are now seniors, quote unquote. So if somebody had a joy for living that included certain physical activities that were a certain kind or a certain lifestyle, they've raised the kids, they may be divorced, they may be married, but they are at a point in their life where they're still cognizant, they're still physically somewhat able. They may not be doing, cage match martial arts, but they may be doing Tai Chi. They may not be doing, skate park skateboarding, but they may be actually, I don't know, doing a longboard, for example, or something like that. Like it doesn't make any sense that a person that had a particular joy that or layers to their personality and the way they live their life, to all of a sudden now basically just become the person that sits in the rocking chair waiting for God's bus to come around. I mean, but why do we as a society still hold on to
that? So wow, you're diving into a big one here. So what I think most would agree is a lot of our views have been shaped by marketing, and we've been told there's a certain way to look in terms of what is what looks good. Well, young looks good, fit and thin looks good. Not supposed to have a shiny top on your head. That's not good if I want to run for office.
I really didn't want to say anything, but okay.
So these are the stereotypes that we've been raised with, and so when you hear that year after year, decade after decade, whether we like it or not, most of us believe it. Because so I'll kind of talk a little bit about where I see this, because I teach this at the University of Delaware. So I have all my students. So you have to be 50 to get in. So unfortunately we screen them. We don't let any young kids in. And so one of the things that I find is I'm always having to do is to help people unlearn things. And unlearning is either because we learned it through the media, so we had certain beliefs because we were brought up with these advertisements that our parents were brought up with and they told us, or it's just some old science and some old that no one ever really took to bear until recent years. But again, if I believed it, so we can use smoking as the example. Everyone understands the health risks associated with smoking. That was a 40-year exercise from the time the science proved it until society accepted that smoking was bad. So there's a phase lag, a long phase lag with a lot of these things on average, the phase lag is about 20 years. So I'll use that in the medical profession, for example. By the time we learn it in medical science, it's about 20 years until it's going to get into your primary care physician's hands to be able to pass on to you in a supportive environment. So we expect things to happen quickly. So there's a reality here of things take longer than we would like to happen as well. It's not as fast as technology.
What do you think? What do you think the projection on? I mean, you and I have been at this long enough, right? Would you agree that there has been a seemingly increased rate for these conversations, for this sort of awareness now, like in the last few years, for example, than had been before? I got certified aging in place in, let's say, 2008. And living in the part of the country where I am, where we don't even put salt on the driveways, we don't change winter clothes to summer clothes, we don't have snow days. Earthquakes is probably the closest thing that we have to a natural disaster. Maybe some forest fires lately, because we're not raking our forests. Don't get me started. But the thing about it is, I have noticed in the last couple of years, literally couple of years, that there's more receptiveness, growing steadily every year, about this conversation about what is my life like. And the interesting thing is, I didn't anticipate it, but due to the economic crisis of 2000, the last economic recession, there's also conversation about reinvention, of encore careers, of finding purpose with a work layer. That I don't want to basically play golf every day for the rest of my life. That's not fulfilling enough for me. And do you see that? Do you think that we are on that trajectory now, or?
So I would say I talk about it as you fall into two camps. So there's the proactive camp, who are interested. So people can't see it, but I'll make sure we can find a link to them. The center of that, what looks like a dartboard on the screen there, is about longevity. So if you look at what's the target for people who are interested in this in a more passionate way, it's around happiness, health span, and significance. Right? And so you can put those together wherever you want, and depending on the day, one of those may be higher than another. So the significance is one of, and both in terms of what are we doing with our time. So is it the encore career? Is it with the grandkids, or whatever that matters? But also, how are we going to be remembered? Right. So we don't want to be remembered as the feeble one that was sick and a burden to the family. No one wants that for themselves. So that's what we kind of put as the target around our longevity education. What's missing is a real gap in understanding and education around how do you get from wherever we are today to that. We tend to think that we know, again, but we're relying on mostly marketing and some old wives' tales to get us there. And and my buddy says the same thing. So we hear the same thing that gets reinforced, but it isn't necessarily the right information. So I think there's some who clearly have that as an objective and are committed to learn. And there's others who will just take, I'm going to get whatever comes, and that's just the way it's meant to be. Unfortunately, for those people, as life has got longer and medical experts are now getting better at keeping us from dying, it means more years of morbidity, and that's difficult on everybody. And so if you're paying attention to it, you're appreciating that's not a life that I would want for myself, or I would want anybody to have to experience.
So what's next for you? Like what is it that, obviously we have sort of our daily function, of actually basically helping people and stuff like that, right?
Yep.
But this is a sort of an area that hits everybody, including ourselves, right? So what's next for you? What do you see on the horizon for this?
So I think awareness is growing because is people are realizing, so we're seeing more, again, some of the marketing is coming at it, which is causing more conversations to happen. There's more people like you and I out there that are becoming available to people. But it's going to be a shift. I mean, if we look at the baby boomers, they're responsible for a tremendous amount of innovation. So to think that this generation is going to sit back and just take it, I don't think so. I think in the silent generation, they were really caught off guard, but they had a healthy enough lifestyle that many got through that without too much. We're just starting through the transition period of, in the medical side of this, we look at the tsunamis coming. So we could say what's happening today with coronavirus, we've been predicting is going to happen in terms of caring for our elderly. There's going to be years of sickness and many more coming as they start to get older. So if you're aware of that, then you've got, fear can be a great motivator, or lifestyle can be a great motivator, depending which one gets you going. But at the end of the day, I think there's lots of motivation out there, and we're starting to see that happen now. So that's probably what you're maybe referring to.
Yeah, no, that's a great way to answer that question. I had a friend of mine who went through training as a stockbroker with Merrill Lynch back in the 80s. And one of the things he told me later in life, then he became a real estate broker, is he said that their training at Merrill Lynch, in order to force or secure sales, was the tuning in to two reasons why people buy: fear or greed. And it's not necessarily a negative connotation. Like, it could be a fear of missing out on something, or a greed for more of something that is good for you. But they said that really it comes down to those two motivations. So yeah, I think maybe what's going on right now provides us an opportunity to have a heightened state of awareness when the noise around us is a little bit less, and we are literally thrown into a living environment where we have other people around us. We're in this home. I would bet that if we ask people, even without the aging element, that there may be people that are looking at their homes in ways right now that they've never looked at their homes before, and whether that home is accommodating their current needs. I mean, do you have enough areas for the kids and you to basically be at a safe distance from one another, because you're about to kill somebody because you spend so much time with them? Do you have enough alcohol storage? I know I'm being facetious a little bit, but the truth is, to your point, no residence or house was ever built to last you through everything that life threw at you, right?
Sure.
And one of the things that we can maybe manage is making the environment be able to accommodate you as your needs change, age-related or otherwise. And so it's an opportunity, I think, to talk about this stuff now. And the more we, basically present it as an empowerment and an increase in independence, let alone financial wise decision, maybe, the more the conversation stays away from things that are maybe uncomfortable. Ooh, somebody's going to get old, grandma's going to come live with us, you and I are comfortable in sharing that with people, because I think we do with a certain level of sensitivity to their conditions and where they're at in their life, and we can have that conversation comfortably. I don't know that I'm not under any impression that it is an easy conversation for everybody to have. I mean, sometimes family members don't have that conversation with one another, although they have an opportunity today because of this to possibly engage. You and I basically always encourage people, like at Thanksgivings and at Christmas, and when people come together that are multi-generational, to have these conversations, right? This is another opportunity.
Yeah, it's families rarely have the opportunity, and sometimes it's the parents have a hard time, sometimes the kids have a hard time. It's part of what one of the things that I do with, so I provide consulting service to people around the country as well, to say, well, we know we need to do some things, and the education piece, I try to say, if all I do is teach you to ask better questions, then we're way ahead of the game. So what are the right questions to ask? And most people, that's the struggle, is I'm not even sure, right? And I don't want to find out after the fact. And that's unfortunately, they've heard about someone who's gone through it and they realize, I don't want that, but I'm not sure what it is I do need because my situation isn't the same as theirs. So part of that is the conversations that, like, how do you help initiate conversation? Often it's just getting it started is the hardest part. So helping them with that, helping to think about, well, let's talk about multi-generational housing. So before it could be that where you are today really isn't the best place to invest. Right, when I talk about invest in health and invest in your home, it may not be the home you're in today, or it may be, but kind of think down the road and say, if you were going to put all your money somewhere on a sure bet, what would that look like? And it could be, it could be two sisters planning to say, well, we're gonna plan to live together at point X down the road, and so based on that, let's do this series of decisions. So it's there's different ways to get there, and that's why I always say the education is so important, because there's no one size fits all here. You really need someone that's detached, that has the experience to be able to look in and help you ask the right questions. They're not going to give you the answers, because most of it will be you know the answer, you just haven't asked yourself the right question yet. And I think that's what people like you and I try to do.
Or force yourself to actually accept that you have to come up with an answer,
right?
If you're really going to be proactive. I mean, I had a client in the last 6 months that basically they sold their house. They're living in a lease environment, at least, or maybe they haven't sold, but they're thinking of selling. The house that cannot accommodate them because they are of a certain ethnic cultural background, that they basically need to have 2 guest bedrooms downstairs because they have family members that come and stay with them like 6 months out of the year on both sides of the couple. And so looking for a home that can be accommodating to that, where there will be, multi-generational families. I have that same thing happening in my immediate circle, immediate family. Those are things that we can help people with, to your point. And I think it's asking those questions of them to get. So what are some things that you think, with our current situation, what are some things that people maybe should be asking for themselves right now, or talking about right now with one another? We have a rare opportunity, like I said, where the noise is down, the distractions are down. We have been forced into a situation to focus, and other than maybe the distractions of Netflix or some, need to basically sequester yourself within the sequestered environment of your home so you can scream, silently for a few minutes. We are put in a situation right now. It reminds me of almost like Big Brother, where everybody is thrown into a situation where they're all in the same house and they have to come together, and but we just don't have cameras turned on necessarily, unless you turn on your Zoom. So what are the opportunities, or what should people be talking about right now from your perspective, Scott, given this current situation?
So I guess what I'm trying to coach people with right now is, while if you're feeling uncomfortable with the situation, whatever elements that might be, don't assume running back to the way it was 4 weeks ago is the best scenario, because as you mentioned earlier, this is going to happen in different ways in the course of your life going forward. And I'm not talking about from fear mongering. I'm telling you, this is part of the natural progression of life. There's certainly on the...
we're going to have a coronavirus epidemic or a coronavirus season next year. They're already predicting it. I shared with you that I had an influenza.
So it kind of goes back to the point, just thinking, that the odds are in your favor, they're not. So kind of saying, okay, well, let's assume that's going to happen. If it doesn't, that's a bonus. So what would be the things about day-to-day living that we would like to take the opportunity to change and go back? So that could be, we could look at what's work situation look like, for example. Do we want to start doing the commute back and forth? Well, if we've in the process of doing this figured out, well, I can do a lot of my work And maybe I don't need to go to the office 5 days a week. Maybe I only need to go 3 days a week or 2 days a week. And as I would coach people is think about what's different and what the opportunity is, because life wasn't perfect before. We're pretty quick to forget.
Mm-hmm.
What's the opportunity for improvement? And what's our plan going to be to address those once the door opens again for us to go back? We don't want to wait 6 months down the road and say, well, I wish I had brought it up, because it's going to be much harder in 6 months than it will be, now. We can look at the family situation and say, let's look forward and say, well, what would be the ideal family situation for us given some changes, because this has exposed people's vulnerabilities. And maybe on that side, because a lot of what I do is around longevity is built around, say, investing in your health and investing in your home. If you feel vulnerable today, that's an indication of there's some things that you can work on to feel a lot less vulnerable or feel fearful than what you're feeling right now. Good way to think about it. Right? So take that as a signal and spend some time thinking about that. So number one for, I think, almost everybody is health. Right? We know we've got a health issue in the country. We've heard that for a long time. Can you take that energy now and transfer that into saying, I don't like this feeling. I was feeling it before and now I'm feeling it in spades. What can I do to actually change that? So it's not a single thing. It's always a number of lifestyle things. So what do I want my life to look like? I've got to work for it, right? Everything in life, we've got to work for it. But I need to have a plan in place that's going to get me from where I am today to somewhere down the road. So there's any number of elements. So if I can just touch on, maybe you can just pull that up, I'll tell you a little bit that'll kind of help people what's all on that board. So those are all really lifestyle elements that influence longevity. So everyone used to think longevity was about your genes that you inherited. And I'm sorry, but again, there's a great example of a wives' tale that's now long gone. Your genes account for about 15%. And even then, they only start to kick in around age 95. So for most of us, it says you can forget about your genetics. You may have inherited some epigenetics through your parents, but that's the lifestyle elements that you transferred. But those are all very dynamic that you can change. So the key elements in lifestyle that we work on are mind. So that starts with what's our attitude. The key element with that is humility. That's where we kind of need to back off and say, it's okay that you don't know. So let's work on figuring it out, which transfers to confidence. So those are some things there. How do we manage to bring the stress down? Stress is one of the biggest issues that gets in the way of good decision making. We can look at environment.
Well, it's very bad for your health too. It really has
Absolutely
direct impact on your health.
Yeah, it's the hardest one to measure. That's the challenge with stress is, well, tell me what to do. Well, yeah, I can take blood pressure pretty easily, and we can do that a couple of times a day and get it. The other one is environment. That's the next one around there. And environment, we're looking at what's the outside. So we're feeling the outside environment creeping in on us right now. So how do you be more resilient with that? And also we look at what you and I do is the home environment. So what can we do to make some changes and improvements in our home environment to make it more sustainable? Again, that makes our quality of life better. Things around diet, we hear lots around diet. Exercise, simply there, I would tell people 30 minutes a day, get outside and do something, and something you like. And it may not be, maybe you can't play whatever sport you did 20 years ago, but that's not an excuse to do nothing. Right? 30 minutes outside. And then that the fifth element
even if you're just walking, even if you're just walking.
Yeah. And the more brisk, the more energy you can put into it, the more you'll get out of it. And then the last one is community. And that's a really key one for longevity, because what I look at it with people is a key component is finding your tribe. So is the circle of people around you, are they health-minded? Are they supportive? Are they people you can go to if you need help and they're there for you? And if you can't answer yes to those questions, then it says you really need to invest some work, unfortunately, in that. And that's hard emotionally for people. But it's the same thing we would tell our kids, right? Those aren't good friends for you to be around. You're going to need those people long term. So those are the elements: mind, environment, diet, exercise, and community, that all start to say, okay, well, which of those do I see as my biggest gaps, which means I have the biggest opportunity to make a change in my life. And some of them are the brick and mortar things, like our house is one, but is our house in the right location, right? That's kind of goes back to the other part. And that's generally what I tend to default.
In some way, in some ways, some of that stuff, Scott, sorry to interrupt you, but in some ways, some of that stuff relevant to the physical environment is actually the easiest to maybe have control over, to be honest. The other stuff is the harder.
Yep. Yeah, I tell people
internal inventory taking.
We can build you a house anywhere in the country, but if there's no point making investments in a place where you shouldn't be. So first is like real estate, right? Location, location, location. That is still number one. And so if you're in the right location based on these other elements, then it says, okay, right, absolutely well worth making an investment in your home. And let's start with some designs that makes sense. And I think the point I would make there is there aren't enough of you and I in the country, unfortunately. But the worst thing I see happen, and it just breaks my heart. I was in doing a consult for a couple of weeks ago, and I went in and they were just about finishing their master bath remodel, and they had this curb coming out into the middle of the bathroom around. They were just waiting for the glass, and the master bath wasn't that big. I'm looking at this trip hazard, and I said, it would have been a perfect bathroom for a curbless shower. And I said, did your contractor not know anything about it? Like, no one, they didn't know to ask the right question. Contractor probably didn't know how to do it, because they wouldn't offer something they didn't know how to do. And that's where I see the gap. Most contractors don't know what to do.
Bringing that into the conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah. How are you going to justify it to a client? Oh, well, let me explain to you why this could be good, right? I mean, we doing what we do find different ways to define things. Like I tell people when if you want to you want to take out a tub, especially if it's like a built-in platform tub, and you want to put in a shower. If the bathroom is a small one, you've just visually added size to that bathroom by basically adding that 30 inches or whatever, a continuation of your floor with the glass. So not only do you modernize the bathroom, you've used that tub only to shower anyway for the last 5 years, 6 years, whatever, however long you've been in the house. This also makes your bathroom look bigger. The situation with you mentioned the shower where you do a shower for two because you can have fun in the shower for two. I should share with you. We did a shower for a residence here in San Clemente. We redid the whole bathroom, and we had an area where the sinks were literally backed like an L, so you're butt to butt basically on the sinks, right? Yeah. But the area that these sinks were in was about a 7x7 footprint. So when I shifted the sinks to the other side of the bathroom, I now ended up with the 7x7 to do what in? So we did a 7x7 shower with 12 body jets, 2 rain heads, and a steam. And when the house was being put on the market, the realtor during the open house had the equivalent of a challenge, like how many clowns can you put in a clown car? They got 14 realtors at the open house in this one shower and took a picture of it.
Yeah.
Okay. And the client then proceeded to share it with a little bit of naughtiness about the shower and being a playful environment and how many people he could have in the shower. But yes, again, to remind people, I mean, my background being on the hospitality side is we were always subject to have to meet ADA requirements from the 90s, from when the ADA went into effect. Every commercial property had to have ADA requirements, at least a certain percentage of the offering. So in the case of treatment rooms for spas, wellness centers, same thing. Hotels, guest bedrooms, same thing. And so you were still charging at the high-end 5-star hotel level, you're still charging $500, $600 a night for a room. Those rooms never looked medical.
Yeah.
Right? First of all, the Ritz-Carltons and Four Seasons of the world would never allow you to do it that way. But you also could apply universal design or universal delight, if you will, to the situation and end up with a result that was ageless. timeless, and regardless of limitations, and experientially equal to one that isn't. And I always argue the fact when it comes to like retail environments or shops and things of that nature, it's actually more cost effective to make it universally applicable.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. It's just, again, it's that phase lag. People aren't used to seeing it, so they don't even know to ask about it. And if they have some association with it's got some other connotations that have been ingrained into them, you have to, showing them is the best way to reset that. So I'm big on showing them all, like you can put it into any style you want, contemporary, traditional, colonial, any. It's not a style thing at all. It's all about how do
It's a
you build the
mindset.
functional elements into the style or aesthetics that you like. Yeah. Well, there's a piece
Yeah,
I call.
it's a mindset. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I was going to say it's
go ahead. What was the
phenomenology,
piece?
right?
Yeah.
How does it make you feel to be in that space? That's phenomenology. In architecture, we talk about it as how do we make that space a space that delights you? And so it's a functional element and the aesthetics that speak to you. And once we get that figured out, that's really now the finishing materials that pull it together.
Well, I think on that note, my friend, I mean, short of you sitting at the top of the mountain in a Buddha position and sharing these wisdoms that you just ended with, I think I don't have anything else to add. I think this is good. Um, but I will echo, and I think we both probably would encourage people right now to take this opportunity. And we've had a week. You've adjusted. It's been phenomenal how fast we have adjusted. You and I were having this conversation. You know, Many people have pivoted. The impact is there, but it's mitigated somewhat. They're moving on. They're handling their expanded responsibilities with their kids in the houses. How to care for things. I think this is an opportunity for all of us to have these conversations. Whether you're having them like Scott and I are having them here, like on a Zoom, you just do them on a phone. There's an opportunity for us to reconnect with that. And to your initial point, really take a good look at what our quality of life definition should be. And just because we used to do something in a certain way in the old normal doesn't mean the new normal should be the same. We actually have a little bit more. You're sharing with me somebody who is very much in demand in their job. That person that's related to you, that person could walk into the office after the coronavirus is over, which there will be a day after Corona, at least Corona 2020. Okay,
Yeah,
2021, I don't know how long that's going to be, but Corona 2020, they can walk into that office and they could actually have a conversation where they say, you know what, I am a key component of this team. We have proven that we can do this work remotely. In order for me to have a quality of life that I really want to strive for, and relationships with my family that I want to strive for, and sort of more of a balance, if you will, quality of life, I would like to propose that I basically spend 2 or 3 days in the office, and the rest of the time I basically remotely work. We are able to now see what our lives can be if we choose to shape them from our physical environment, where you and I could help, to other things that are just relational even. And so I want to thank you for being here, because this is not a design conversation. This is more of a bigger conversation.
yeah.
Where do we want to be in the day after coronavirus? We are been offered a lesson, an opportunity to actually examine.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I think the message for everyone here is. It may not feel like it, but this is the best opportunity to come along in a while. Um, Take advantage of it. Take your time, because you have time, and really think about where are the opportunities to really improve your life in a sustainable way.
And I will just end with a little plug for both you and I. Next time around, we are faced with an influenza virus, an H1 virus, a corona revisit. It's like a relative that we don't really want to see next year, but we know they're going to come to visit, right? Contact Scott and myself, and we can probably help you not have to overstock on toilet paper, and probably make some other modifications to your house that would allow you to forego, like maybe the materials that you use on your kitchen countertops are a little bit more, non-absorbent, so you don't have to worry about things basically getting in there. And as far as the how to save on toilet paper, I'm not sharing that with you guys right now. I might have something to say about that next week, but there are ways that you don't have to basically go buy 114 rolls of toilet paper to handle your needs for 14 days. So
Yeah,
is that
that's
a good point to end
definitely
it?
not my area of expertise. So, yeah.
Oh, you know what? I'll share with you what I'm talking about off camera. But
Okay.
my point is this: preparation, conversation. Have the sense of empowerment to having both of those, and not avoid it, because there's no avoiding it. Burying your head in the sand isn't going to achieve anything. And this is, like you said, an opportunity for us to maybe do it differently.
Yep. It's
So
part
with
of.
that being said, I want to just say, go ahead, Scott.
No, I was just saying it's just part of, you have more control than you realize, but just keep doing what you're doing is not control. You're actually steadily eroding control. So you're really, I really encourage people, be proactive, get out there and start making some decision, and you will be surprised how much you'll benefit from it immediately. And we're not talking about things from 20 years. You'll start benefiting from them. You'll see a year from now, say, why didn't we do that 10 years ago?
Almost immediately.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I mean, okay, fine.
Thank you, Rod.
I'll share what I'm talking about with it.
Always great talking to you. I just, I'm so happy to have you, and I kind of feel like we're the bookends on both sides of the country. So I'm just thrilled that to have you.
We kind of are, aren't we? We're like East Coast, West Coast little thing going on here. I also want to encourage everybody to reach out to Scott. He is on LinkedIn. He is very approachable, as you can all see for yourselves. And go check out his company. The website is really very informative, homeideations.com. And my friend, I will wish you a good rest of the week